Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Jeju in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Brew. A major rescue operation is continuing off Korea's southwestern coast on this Thursday afternoon, more than 24 hours after a Korean passenger ferry carrying 475 people capsized. 9 people have now been confirmed dead, but 287 others remain unaccounted for.
Most on board the Sewol ferry were teenagers, high school students heading to Korea's southern Jeju Island for a field trip. We'll go straight to Connie Kim, who's standing by at an emergency management center that's been set up to deal with this tragic incident. Connie, what do we know so far?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any updates on the number of additional survivors. A few hours ago, a press briefing was held by the Minister of Security and Public Administration, and the death toll, as you mentioned, has risen to 9 in just the past couple of hours. 3 foreigners were also on board. The ministry says 2 Filipinos were rescued. However, the whereabouts of the 18-year-old Russian student are unknown as of now. Among the 179 that have so far survived, 101 people are currently being treated in 8 different hospitals, with 5 of them in critical condition. Now, there were conflicting numbers yesterday about the total number of people on board the ship when it went down. The number has now been fixed at 475.
Yeah, there certainly has been a lot of confusion over the last 24 hours or so, but one thing is for sure, the whole nation wants everyone to be safe and sound. And the search and rescue efforts continue. This is a huge operation. Can you tell us just how big it is?
Well, according to the securities minister, there are 555 scuba divers on the scene, along with 169 ships and 29 aircraft, all actively searching for survivors. Now, this is a cooperative search being led by the Korean Navy and the Coast Guard, but they're battling difficult conditions. Fast tidal currents and low visibility underwater are hampering such efforts. There are 3 cranes currently on their way to Jindo. 1 departed Wednesday night, and all 3 cranes are expected to arrive by tomorrow morning. They'll work in tandem to lift the 68,000-ton ferry out the water.
We sure do hope these 3 cranes will be very helpful at the site. And we're all waiting anxiously for updates from the government. How are government officials helping with the search?
Well, Prime Minister Chung Eun-won held a cabinet meeting earlier this morning, calling for all related ministries to do all they can to speed up with the search operations. Now, the Security Ministry is covering any and all finances associated with the search at the accident site. The Oceans Ministry will cover other expenses, including compensating the victims' families and supporting with bringing up the capsized vessel. The Coast Guard will continue to investigate the inside of the ferry and establish an investigation task force. The presidential office of Cheongwade has canceled all scheduled meetings this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Connie. We'll, of course, continue to monitor the developments in the search and rescue efforts while continuing to hope for the very best in this extremely difficult time. That was our Connie Kim reporting from the Emergency Management Center in Seoul.
Let's now go over to our Kim Jiyeon at the News Center for further details on this incident.
Jiyeon, there's been a lot of talk here in Korea about the series of text messages that have emerged since the ferry went down. These have actually been raising hopes of finding survivors.
That's right, Mark, Chinju. Local authorities here have confirmed that some of the messages from the missing were received at around midnight last night. These messages said they were alive, which is raising hopes more survivors will be found. But we must note that there's a strong possibility these messages were sent earlier than that and were delivered at the later time due to heavy data. The Coast Guard says that they will insert more oxygen into the vessel to increase the chances of more survivors before they lift the ship out of the site. Despite these efforts, heavy rain and gusts of wind continue to hamper efforts of the rescue operation throughout the morning. Machinery that weigh around 100 tons are swaying back and forth due to the winds, and the winds with strong ocean currents are leading to low temperatures, which is reaching around 14 degrees Celsius as of Thursday.
So it's so unfortunate that weather conditions are not helping at the site. Now, we still don't know what caused the ship to capsize. There's speculation the ferry might have hit a submerged reef or rocks, or that it may have made a swift turn for some reason. What do we know about what may have happened?
Well, although the focus remains on the rescue operations, there is only speculation at this point about what caused the ferry to sink. The Coast Guard has released provisional findings. They say there was an abrupt change in the ship's direction, and this could have caused the ship to tip. Due to this, the ferry's cargo may have shifted, causing the 180 vehicles and 1,000 tons of cargo to shift to one side, ultimately leading the ship to capsize very quickly. But I emphasize this again, that this is a provisional finding, and it's important to repeat that as the investigation into what happens continues.
Well, thank you very much, Jiyeon. That was our Kim Jiyeon reporting there. Now, the exact cause of the accident is not yet known, just provisional things, as Jiyeon mentioned there. But there's plenty of speculation on how this 6,800-ton ferry, the second biggest of its kind operating in Korea, went under in less than just 2 hours' time.
Right. For an expert's analysis on the sinking, we're now joined on the phone by Professor Kim Kwang-soo at Mokpo National Maritime University's Division of Maritime Transportation Systems. So, Professor, firstly, as we just heard, there's a lot of speculation flying around, but what, in your opinion, might have caused the ferry to sink?
Yeah, now it is a highly controversial issue to say the cause of the accident. It is too early to conclude the cause of the accident because the accident is under inspection and the outcome of inspection is not produced yet. However, in my opinion, there is a possibility that the strong tidal currents made the ship deviate from the intended coastline of route and led the ship to collide or touch with something such as a sinking rock happened before arriving the accident site of the capsize.
Yeah, still far too early to reach any conclusions, but the time frame in which the ferry sank was about 2 hours. Now, how could such a large vessel completely sink in such a short period of time? We hear that is very uncommon.
Unexpectedly, the ship began to be filled with water and sank in 2 hours. 2 hours are thought to be very short time in capsizing the passenger ship. Probably while the ship was damaged and flooded and then listed to port side, the vehicles and cargo containers which were loaded and stored on board the ship were supposed to move to port side rapidly, and the list of the ship to port side might be more increased after the ship was capsized quickly due to the loss of ship's stability. I don't know exactly the condition of seawater ballast on board the ship.
So now reports are saying the passenger vessel didn't send out a distress signal, but it was rather the passengers that reported the sinking in the first place. What could have happened at that time inside the ferry?
It's very hard to say what happened on board the ship. It is curious to know that why they not report immediately when accident happened. I cannot say definitely at this moment.
Okay, and Professor, we're led to believe that the area where the ferry sank is notorious for its rough and powerful undercurrents there under the water. Can you give us some more details about the region?
Yeah, passenger ship Sewol was sunk in waters of Mango Channel. Mango Channel is located between Mango Island and Jeju Island in southwestern coastal area of Korea, and it is very noted for a strong tidal current in Korea. Maximum current, tidal current in Mango Channel is about 4 knots, because Mango Channel is a passage of a main route from West Sea to South Sea in Korea, and its depth of water is over 30 meters. This channel is mostly used by passenger ships and large-sized vessels.
Now moving on to the weather conditions over there for rescue efforts. And now weather forecast for the area around Jeju Island suggests low visibility, strong wind and rain will make it difficult for rescue operations there. Do you expect authorities to find any more survivors?
The weather forecast not so good. That makes the matter worse. Unfortunately, bad weather will make search and rescue operations more difficult. It is most regrettable there is not much possibility of survival rescue of missing persons. Especially content of oxygen on board is critical to the survival of passengers contained on board the ship. Oxygen below the 7% of the air suggests the danger to lives or means the loss of life. Another thing, hypothermia. Hypothermia is another important factor to the survival of a person at sea. Body temperature below 33 degrees is very dangerous to the lives of passengers at sea.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Professor. We are looking forward to some good news in this truly heartbreaking incident that is a very, very dark time for Korea. That was Professor Kim Kwang-soo of Mokpo National Maritime University offering his insights on the Sewol-ho ferry sinking.
Now, for a quick recap of the current situation, 287 people are still missing and the number of confirmed dead has risen in the last couple of hours to 9. Now, 179 people were rescued on Wednesday, this after the Sewol-ho ferry started to sink sometime around 9 a.m. Wednesday morning Korea time, some 20 kilometers off the coast of Jeju Island in southwestern Korea. Now, at this point is speculation and even more speculation. Something that is being discussed heavily, however, is that this terrible incident could have been made worse as passengers on board the ill-fated ferry were told numerous times through an onboard announcement to stay put and not attempt to jump into the sea. It was only after an hour that a final announcement was made for everyone to get off, but by then it could have been too late for some. Son Jung-yeon has more.
It's been reported that when the accident occurred, the onboard announcement to the passengers was to stay where they were without giving any specific directions. The same announcement was known to have been heard repeatedly for 1 hour before they finally told all the passengers to jump into the sea with their life vests on as the ferry was going to sink. Many say the delayed warning to get off the ferry could have caused a bigger tragedy as many passengers heeded instructions and stayed in their rooms and were later unable to escape as the vessel went down.
A female voice informed us of the situation through a speaker. She said the rescue workers would come soon and she told us to stay put.
The Sewol is one of the biggest ferries in Korea and most of the equipment is electric, including the doors and gates inside. Some experts speculate the generator may have gone off when the ferry began to tilt to the left.
It's highly likely the power cut off. As the ferry tilted, there could have been a total blackout, meaning doors would not open.
Even if the doors were open, the steep incline of the floors may have made escape much more difficult for people trapped inside.
Many people were screaming as the floors inclined and all the equipment and people slid down.
The worst scenario is that if there are still people trapped in the cabin, there won't be enough air for them to breathe. Everyone is praying with all their hearts that this won't be the case and that all those unaccounted for will be rescued safely. 손정인, Arirang News.
If this terrible accident hadn't ever happened, the 475 people on board the Sewol ferry should be on Jeju Island by now. They left from the port city of Incheon Tuesday night and were nearly 12 hours into their trip when something caused the ship to capsize. Our Shin Se-min walks us through the ferry's journey leading up to that fateful moment.
11 hours and 52 minutes. That is how long the capsized Korean ferry sailed after departing from its port on Tuesday night before it suddenly ran into problems. Its 475 passengers expected to set off at 6:30 p.m. that night, but their departure is delayed 2 hours due to foggy weather skirting near the coastal area.
We were told the thick fog would delay our departure time.
There are no indications of any trouble after the ferry hit open waters. And around 10 p.m. Tuesday, the ship passed by Palmi-do Island, slipping through the Incheon coastal waters, heading south toward Jeju Island. By dawn, the Sewol ferry passes near waters off Mokpo near Jeollanam-do province. 8:30 in the morning. Excited students wake up to thoughts of their field trip to Jeju. Many either call or text family members about their whereabouts and to tell them they are safe. But 20 minutes later, with just 2 hours to go before the ship is set to arrive at port, the ship comes to an abrupt stop and begins to capsize. The students and others on board would be in Jeju right now, if not for whatever caused the ship to sink. Yet, a majority of them remain missing at this hour, with a massive search and rescue operation underway to find them. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And as the rescue efforts continue, text messages from passengers who were on the sinking ferry have surfaced. A son thinking he might not make it, telling his mother that he loves her, and another student telling his father that he cannot escape because the ship has tilted too much. There are other rescue stories coming to light, including the rescue of a 6-year-old child. Connie Lee has more.
Text messages, apparently from passengers, paint a harrowing picture of what it was like in the moments directly after the ferry started sinking. One trapped passenger texted his father, telling him about a situation. To this, the father responded, "I know help is on the way, but if possible, get outside." To this, the son texts back, "No, Dad, I can't. The ferry is too tilted. There are no kids out in the hallways." Another passenger, this time a son, texted his mother, "Mom, just in case I don't have another chance to say it, I love you." The mother replied, but clearly unaware of his situation. An exchange between two brothers describes what had happened. The passenger texted that the ferry hit something and stopped moving, but reassured his older brother that a rescue team had arrived. The older brother then replied, telling him not to panic, to stay alert and follow directions, but he heard nothing more. Meanwhile, the stories of survivors show their desperate attempts to live, with some passengers breaking through windows and jumping into waters to be rescued.
I just jumped into the water and started swimming. It was really cold, so I tried to swim as fast as I could.
Stories of heroism are also surfacing, including one where 58-year-old Kim Hong-young saved 20 passengers by himself as the ferry was sinking. Kim reportedly tied a fire hose to curtains and pulled nearly 24 students from the first floor of the ship to the outside so that rescue helicopters could reach them. And another story of heroism is a rescue of a 6-year-old child. The young girl named Jiyeon was rescued by 4 passengers, as you can see in this video, in the final moments. During the disaster, she was apparently split up from her parents and brother, who are unfortunately still among the hundreds who are still missing. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
People from all around the world are offering words of support and sympathy about the tragic ferry sinking. Deputy spokeswoman for the U.S. State Department, Marie Harf, said at a press briefing that the U.S. extends its deepest condolences to the loved ones of those who lost their lives on board the Sewol. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon echoed that sentiment, as did the foreign ministers of China, Canada and France, who each issued official statements expressing condolences on behalf of their countries. All added that they stand ready to provide any assistance needed in the ongoing search and rescue efforts.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. Connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broom and Jin-Ju.
I'm Jin-Ju with Pro.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, and Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about.
And in other news, Korea and Japan have held their first working-level talks solely focused on the Japanese military sexual enslavement of Korean women during the early 20th century. The two sides met in Seoul late Wednesday to try and resolve their differences, but as Arirang News' Hwang Sung-hee tells us, it will take much more than one meeting to mend decades of sour ties.
Senior officials from Korea and Japan met in Seoul Wednesday as they seek to resolve the long-standing dispute over Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Following 2 hours of talks, a South Korean official who wished to remain anonymous told reporters that the two sides exchanged their basic stances and held a productive discussion. Korea has been demanding an official apology and legal compensation from Japan for the so-called comfort women. Tokyo claims the issue was settled through a 1965 treaty signed by the two neighbors when they normalized diplomatic ties. The rare meeting is the result of an agreement reached ahead of President Park Geun-hye's first official talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in the Netherlands last month. But just one round of talks was not enough for the two sides to overcome decades of diplomatic tensions. The officials will meet again in May, when Japan hosts a second round of discussions on the comfort women issue, and perhaps even more.
I believe there are many issues that Korea and Japan need to exchange views on.
Around 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese army in comfort stations during the early 20th century. When asked whether the officials will discuss a possible summit between South Korea and Japan at their next meeting, the South Korean official did not give a clear answer, but said that the two sides must first build mutual trust. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The head of the UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea has called on the United Nations to deal with the issue more aggressively. Michael Kirby made this statement during a closed-door meeting on Thursday at the UN headquarters, in which he stressed that the UN Security Council should take up the responsibility of dealing with the human rights issue in the North. Kirby added that if the organization fails to do so, they will lose credibility. He said the COI's recent report on the North may lack some weight, as it was written without visiting the communist nation. But he added that he's certain of the oppression of human rights in Pyongyang and throughout North Korea from the recounts of some 26,000 North Korean defectors residing in South Korea. South Korea's producer price index fell for the 18th consecutive month in March by 0.5% compared to the same period last year. The Bank of Korea attributed a drop in oil prices and raw materials to the decline, along with the local currency's gains against the greenback. A central bank official, however, said that because the prices of livestock products and services between consumers and businesses had risen, consumers probably won't feel as though prices have fallen that much. The prices of water, gas and electricity rose 5.5% year-over-year, while services, including education and transportation, went up by 1.3%.
Well, let's get started with the weather outlook in Jindo for today. As it mentioned earlier, it doesn't look too good. Heavy showers are expected of up to 40 millimeters, along with strong winds and thunderstorms, and waves are expected to reach 1 to 2 meters high, with water temperatures ranging between 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. And other southern provinces will also receive heavy showers, while Seoul and the surrounding area will have a brief period of rain in the late afternoon of less than 5 millimeters. And this band of rain will drop the temperatures down, mainly in the regions down south, while similar afternoon highs are expected in the Seoul metro area. But also please note that the level of fine dust particles will remain moderately high in the capital area. With that in mind, here are today's temperatures. Now, the high in the capital will rise to 22, while highs in Daegu and Gwangju should see as 20 and 17 respectively, and Busan should top out at 18 later in the day. Now for other regions, it looks like down on Jeju will reach 21, Daejeon peaks at 19, and Mount Gyeongang should see a high of 10 this afternoon. Well, that's all for me today, and I'll be back with more updates tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much, Jiyeon, for the weather there. And those are the stories we're following at this hour. Stay tuned to Arirang for the latest updates on this disastrous ferry accident off Korea's southwestern Jeju Island.
We hope to hear more about these more survivors, and let's all keep the victims and their families in our thoughts. Mark and I will be back at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.